12:30 on the dot Eastern Standard Time. We are here with Steve Tipman. Steve, welcome back. It's good to see you again, even though it's from on different parts of the continent. So Steve is with us from the Trade Facilitation Office, TFO Canada. He will be speaking today about what TFO does in terms of being partners for the international apparel community in sourcing products from developing countries. Steve, please go ahead and get your discussion started here. I did want to say really quick for anybody watching, we do have a Q&A at the very end of the presentation, so please feel free to feed in your questions and we'll address them at the end. So without further ado, Steve, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Jason, and it's a real pleasure to be with the ATSV this time, as opposed to the Apparel Textile Sourcing Canada shows. I just want to everybody is doing well. It's very, very challenging times. I'm just going to start my presentation here, and we'll get going. Okay, great. So again, as Jason mentioned, my name is Steve Tipman. I'm the Executive Director of the Trade Facilitation Office Canada, otherwise known as TFO Canada. And it's my pleasure to be with you today to talk a little bit about the work that we do in helping importers source products from developing countries. But of course, no presentation, unfortunately, in this day and age, would complete without some talk about and commentary on what we live in today. And so I thought that this was an interesting book to start because very, very early on in the pandemic, there was a concerted effort by many leaders around the globe with understanding that you know, in amongst the very challenging situation of COVID-19, trade needed to continue, investments in trade, keeping markets open, needed to be priority while dealing with the medical emergency that we've experienced around the world. But TFO Canada. So we are a Canadian not-for-profit organization. We've actually been operating since 1980. You'll notice the logo on the bottom of the screen. We're celebrating 40th anniversary this year. We're based in Ottawa, the nation's capital of Ottawa. We actually started as being part of the Canadian, so for our first 5 years of our existence, we were actually part of the Canadian International Development Agency, and then we kind of spun off and became created ourselves as a non-for-profit corporation in Canada in 1985, and we still have that status today. Our mission, our statement of purpose, is really to improve lives through the creation of sustainable trade partnerships for exporters from developing countries with Canadian and foreign buyers. And so that's very important because we really see this as a way of achieving development outcomes, helping a developing country entrepreneurs through trade, and that's been our mission basically since day one. Beneficiaries, we work with tens of thousands, of small and medium enterprises in developing countries around the world. We also work with trade support institutions who often act as our partners in country, so that they are actually equipped with the skills and information knowledge, and we work with them so that we can have more and more small enterprise sell their goods and services to foreign markets. In the countries, we work in over 50 countries in Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, Middle East, and Asia. A little bit more about the organization. So in terms of services, we kind of break down into three broad categories. And so information, advice, and contact. And so when you look at information, we do a lot in terms of market entry research. We share information seminars. We participate in events such as this. We actually host webinars through our website, and we do a lot of information sharing. And a lot of this is actually done online and is available to participants at this seminar today who would like to register or take advantage of a lot of this information we have. Advice, we do a lot in the area of working in markets and to really help small and medium enterprise get familiarized with markets. We do information around helping adapt products, development of products, and product promotion. And of course, we work directly with the SMEs themselves as well as the trade support institutions, helping to build their knowledge and capacity so that they're able to export and find foreign markets for their goods. Contact is kind of, I guess, where the rubber meets the road. So we do business matchmaking through export trade missions and buyer missions. And so this is where exporters come to an event, whether it be in person or virtually, but also we do buyer missions where we're helping buyers source products in other markets as well. Sectors, we work in many different sectors, so apparel, textiles, footwear, fashion accessories, home decor, furniture, food and beverage, IT services. Basically, we really look at areas where there's a priority placed, where there's a supply and a potential, and then we overlay that with the demand for these goods or services in a given market. In terms of service delivery, yes.
Steve, just a second. It's John Banker.
Yeah.
We had a little issue with your microphone. My tech guys are telling me it's probably on your end. So I wanted to make sure we tried to rectify that if we could real quick. Could we test that microphone?
Can you hear me now?
Sure.
Hello?
Why don't you talk for maybe 30 seconds and we'll go on if it sounds good.
Okay. Hopefully you can still hear me. I was on a call just a little earlier and the microphone was working well. So how about now? Is this good?
It was good until you touched something. It was good. I think we're good. So let's go ahead and continue, and I'll just stick in here as well.
Okay, thanks, John. And so in terms of service delivery, and apologies for the technical issues. We do have an internationally experienced project management staff that are based here at our headquarters in Ottawa, but we also work with an extensive network of associates who tend to be trade specialists, sector experts, and researchers who we work with both here in Canada, but also in the countries where we do a lot of our services and project work. I'm often asked, why does TFO Canada do the kind of work that it does? And so, you know, a couple of areas. So when we look at a publication that came out 5 years ago from the World Bank and the World Trade Organization on the role of trade in ending poverty, they find that trade is a critical enabler of growth, creating more and better jobs for the world's poor. Looking at the United Nations, they have their sustainable development goals. And so there's 17 goals in total, but we find that there's great alignment with our work in goal number 5, which is around achieving gender equality, empowerment of women and girls, as well as goal number 8, which is around promoting inclusive, sustainable economic growth, employment, and decent work for all. When I look at the Canadian Feminist International Assistance Policy, and of course, the Canadian government is a great supporter of TFO Canada's work, and it has funded many of our projects over the years. The alignment there is, again, around gender equality, helping and empowering women and girls, as well as an area that's very focused on growth that works for everyone. taking a look at the International Trade Center. So this is an organization based in Geneva, Switzerland. It's a collaboration between the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. They have research that shows that SMEs, small medium enterprise, are the missing link for inclusive and sustainable development. And they also see that $1 spent on export promotion generates $87 of additional exports and can increase a country's gross domestic product by $384. Looking at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Melinda actually was quoted, this is a couple of years now, where she talked about how the new focus on women's economic empowerment should be on connecting women to markets, ensuring they have access to financial services, empowering them to help themselves, thus enabling women to lead a full life. And so this is kind of as a backdrop, which kind of helps to explain the why we do the work that we do. If I look at our histories with the Apparel Textile Sourcing Canada show, and now of course the virtual engagement for this year, it dates back to the very beginning in 2016. So we did a panel presentation on how to source from least developed countries. 2017 was a big year for us. We actually brought 30 countries on a project that we called Artisan Hub. And so the website is still live today. And so for those who are interested, you can certainly click on artisanhub.ca and see the types of products and the companies that we helped to support that mission 3 years ago. In 2018, we supported Ukrainian and Indonesian producers, and of course, I was fortunate enough to do another presentation. And this time, it was really diversifying sources of supply by working with developing countries. Last year, I co-presented with Ghana, with their export promotion agency, and we really talked about the new frontier for Canadian sourcing executives and brands in Africa. And of course, that brings us to this year, which is the virtual show. And we're supporting producers from 3 countries. So Egypt, we have Bishara Textile Garment Manufacturing Company. From Kenya, we have Jalila Collections, and we're working with the Association of Ghana Apparel Manufacturers. And so I'd invite everybody to check them out and to visit their booths during the show. I think you'll be very impressed with some of the things that they have for offer. And of course, in addition to this presentation today, we're actually participating in a panel this Thursday, which is really about discovering the advantages of African culture. So shout one out, it's at 11 o'clock Eastern time.
Let me just repeat a couple of those things, because mostly we heard, but we do have 3 participating exhibitors currently that were being supported and funded with the help of the TFOC. And those 3 are all from different African countries. And we're going to go over those names one more time. Okay, so we have from Ghana, the Ghana, help me out with the association, Steve. What's the Ghana group?
Yeah, it's the Association of Ghana Apparel Manufacturers.
Okay. And from Egypt, we have a manufacturer, a very significant manufacturer from Egypt. It's pronounce that name for me.
Yeah, I pronounce it Bishara Textile and Garment Manufacturing Company. Okay,
Bishara. Yes, and they're from Egypt. And then the third company is from Kenya. And this company is, I want to pronounce it correctly. It's like Jeilo, Jeilo, if I'm correct, right?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
And they have beautiful handbags and accessories.
Okay, so those are the 3 that we've brought in with the support and the assistance of Steve Tipman and the TFOC. Steve also mentioned that on Thursday of this week, we're going to have a session devoted to Africa and those manufacturers and more. So you'll want to see that session on Thursday. Steve was also letting us know about that. Now, let's go ahead and have you continue, Steve.
Thanks, John. So let's talk a little bit about the work that TFO Canada does and how we can be a sourcing partner. And so, a lot of the work that we do is very much on trade readiness, capacity building, market access services. And so we certainly do a lot in the area of exporter training, workshops, seminars. And of course, these are done in person and online. Trade missions, very important, obviously, with the organizations that are here at the ATSV show this week. And we also do exporter missions and importer missions, and certainly helping organizations prepare and get ready for a trade show. In terms of web support tools, and you'll see a little bit further in my presentation some of the aspects of our website, but certainly we have a whole host of web-based services for exporters as well as for Canadian importers. And also actually for trade support institutions themselves. The research services, we do a lot of information. You can, for those who have been online, you'll see that we have over 20 market information papers covering various sectors, and certainly we have a lot in the garment, textile, apparel area, and it's all there for those who register on our website to receive our services. And of course, we also work very closely in developing market entry strategies. And the last, kind of suite of services is really working. We work closely with exporters at times in terms of helping them adapt their market if necessary, and providing advice on packaging and labeling, because as we know, different countries have different labeling requirements. And so we want to help them out to make sure that they're able to sell their goods into another market. So why don't we talk a little bit about COVID-19 and some recent data that I've collected on Canadian retail specifically. So, according to Statistics Canada, and this is something that I know a lot of people have talked about in terms of what the recovery might look like when we're talking about COVID-19. Very much when you look at the retail sales environment, and you'll see I have a chart that shows this, that it very much is a V-shaped recovery when we talk about retail in Canada. Although the recovery does vary from one sector to another in terms of different types of retailers. One thing that we've seen is 4 consecutive months of growth. So basically from when sales really plunged in the month of April, we've seen a steady recovery in the months of May to August. And really, I guess the last comment really is that COVID-19 has really accelerated global trends in e-commerce, and you'll see what I mean a little bit later in this presentation. So as I mentioned, we've seen 4 consecutive increases in months of increases in retail sales, and you can definitely see that there's a very pronounced V when we talk about this particular segment of the Canadian economy. And so retail sales actually rose 0.4% to $53.2 billion in August. And so this was the 4th consecutive month. When we look at core retail sales, which excludes gasoline stations, motor vehicle parts dealers, they also did rise 0.4%. And so, this is areas that include the building material, garden equipment, supplies, and food and beverage stores. They are all considered as part of this retail landscape in Canada. Looking at August sales, a little bit more granular, we see that sales are up in 4 of the 11 subsectors. And so building material, garden equipment, supplies were up, food and beverage was up, gasoline was up, as well as miscellaneous other store retailers. Unfortunately, in the areas that a lot of the audience for the this particular event would be, we've seen a decline in general merchandise stores, sporting goods, hobby, book, music, health and personal care, and furniture and home furnishing. So this is a comparison from July to August of this year. Other insights, so the three main provinces, certainly the provinces that have the highest population in the country, we see that in the province of Quebec, sales were up 1.6% in August. This was led mostly from the motor vehicle and parts, building material, garden equipment supplies. And in the city of Montreal, sales just marginally up 2%. Montreal is the second largest city in the country. In British Columbia, we saw a rise of 0.5%, so not quite as high as in Quebec. And this was brought on by a lot in the food and beverage stores, building material, garden equipment supplies as well. And in the city of Vancouver, we saw a rise of 2.7%. And so again, Vancouver being the third largest city in the country, this is noteworthy. In the province of Ontario, where I live,
I'm going to jump in again. I'm going to jump in just for a second. I mean, I heard all those. I heard you going around the Canadian country from east to west there. I made those out, but I think those were kind of difficult. So let's go over them again and see if the connection is clear. It's been very clear, but we had just right there a little issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so as I was saying, sales in 7 of the provinces were up in the month of August, while 3 provinces remained below the pandemic level. So if we look a little bit closer into the 3 provinces that have the greatest population, Quebec sales were up 1.6% in August. And this was brought on mostly by sales of motor vehicles and parts, building materials, garden equipment. And in the city of Montreal, sales were up 0.2%. In British Columbia, sales went up 0.5% in August, brought on by the sales of food and beverages, building material, garden equipment supply dealers. And in the greater Vancouver area, sales were actually up 2.7%, which is quite a rise. In the province of Ontario, where I live, sales were only up 0.1% in August, and sales have increased every month since May. But they are still below pre-pandemic levels. And in the greater Toronto area, which is the biggest city in the province and also in the country, sales were only up 0.1%. This is retail sales. So if I look a little bit closer in terms of, store merchandise, so this is really an important category given, the audience and the sector that we're talking about. Again, you can see that there very much is a V shape when we talk about store merchandise, where sales really dropped in the month of April, and then they progressively got better and better into July. General merchandise stores weren't as badly affected by the COVID-19 compared to mall-based specialty retailers. And so when you think about some of these retailers that offer general merchandise as well as groceries, this was a big indicator for why they've been able to do well during the pandemic.
One second on that. I know this topic too, and you were breaking up again, but we'll just let me recap that you were saying in Canada, and it probably holds true everywhere, that the stores that have apparel, but they're also selling general merchandise, that those are the ones that saw the most success during the pandemic that we're still in, and have seen the quickest bounce back. And that's right. I guess my question would be, of the stores that are really just more focused on apparel, are you seeing that those stores, there's a lot of stores closing in Canada? How are they handling it, those stores that don't have the general merchandise?
Yeah, and that's a good question, John. And unfortunately, they're the ones that have suffered quite a lot during this pandemic. In fact, there's been a number of bankruptcies and store closures among the ranks. Just a couple of days ago, the chain, Montreal-based chain, Le Chateau, which was a clothing store, announced that they were closing later this month as well. And in fact, retail sales were down 36.1% year over year for the 3 months ending in July in the clothing and clothing accessory stores specifically.
Yeah. Now, then your mention was how many of the general merchandise stores in Canada that also do apparel, have seen a different kind of reaction, because a lot of times they're able to stay open. Also, some of these stores are able to stay open maybe because they're selling some type of food.
Yeah.
And so would there be any stores like that you would mention specifically, or brands that you think have kind of that secret sauce that are being successful right now?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, stores like Costco and Walmart are examples of these types of stores that did remain open during the height of the pandemic because they were considered essential, providing an essential service because of the fact that they not only sold food and beverage, but they also have their pharmacy. And so these are the types of stores that tend to do, you know, well, relatively speaking, during the height of the pandemic, at least during the early days when a lot of other retailers were having to close their physical space. So this will lead me to kind of transitioning and talking about the virtual world that we're living in today. And so in many respects, COVID-19 has really accelerated global trends. So these were trends that we were seeing in the areas of digital marketing, online interactions, and e-commerce. And so you'll see I have some statistics that talk a little bit more about how e-commerce has kind of taken, certainly filled some of the void that's been created through some of the lack of retail success. We've noticed that successful small medium enterprise are staying engaged with their customers by using online tools. So whether it be email, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, attending these types of events like the folks at the ATSV are hosting, just ways to be able to connect and remain engaged with their clients. Technology is becoming forever linked with commerce. So the crisis has really underscored the important role that technology plays in how consumers live, work, shop, and play. So some companies are already making acquisitions to boost their tech capabilities. And certainly we're seeing, some successful larger Canadian retailers that are really moving into the e-commerce space so that they continue to engage with their customers. We really think that consumers post-crisis will have different priorities, values, and attitudes. So this is something that we're paying very close attention to, and that this is going to impact how they want to spend their time going forward. So this is really important information for the exporters in developing countries that we work with, because obviously we want to stay on top and help them research consumer habits and how they're changing. And another thing around digital marketing, it's really, obviously stronger than ever before. This in particular could be a benefit and advantage for a smaller firm because the traditional marketing sometimes can be quite expensive for them and, difficult to measure the return on investment. And so we think that, now, of course, going past COVID-19.
Pause again. I hate interrupting Steve Tipman. I never like to interrupt you, Steve, but for some reason, when I do for a second, it ends up making it makes it smoother a minute later. So
Okay.
let's try that. Let's try that again. I know you were just starting to touch on digital, and sometimes it can be pricey. And I guess your focus would be on how these smaller and medium-sized companies can find success in that. I mean, please continue.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, John. Yeah. So as I was saying, digital marketing and the importance is stronger than ever before. And so a lot of the types of trainings that we're doing now and into the future is helping exporters with digital marketing, helping them to better understand how they can take advantage of these tools to be successful in the global marketplace going forward. This slide is an interesting one. It's something we noticed that this is dating back to already April, but it already showed how business activities have changed and are predicted to change moving forward. And so you'll notice that, in terms of online and web support, that the percentage relies on this, chatting, video conference, website, mobile apps. has definitely increased, and what is continuing to, it's expected to continue to increase. E-commerce, selling through e-commerce channels will definitely increase going forward. And then conversely, this means that companies that are looking to do business-to-business activities, they feel that they're going to be less reliant on the physical inside sales team interacting with customers on the phone, because they're moving customers more to a self-service model through their online tools, as well as the in-person sales field team is going there. That's we're seeing a reduction there as well, because again, the migration and really trying to encourage customers to go online to do their business activities and transactions with companies. So this is something that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this trend develops and continues post-COVID as well. So talking a little bit about e-commerce. So Statistics Canada reports that e-commerce made up 3.5% of all Canadian sales in 2019, reaching 22 billion. The consulting firm Accenture says that demand for e-commerce capabilities will continue beyond the pandemic, and with online expected to account for 37% of consumer purchases, and it's currently at around 32%. Also, coupled with the increase in online shopping, consumers are buying larger quantities. And this will have an influence on shipping, on packaging, and how products are being presented. And one retail specialist from the Wilfrid Laurier University in southwestern Ontario estimates that e-commerce share of retail will double in the next 3 years. And so he thinks that a big driver of this will be online purchases of groceries. Yet, and this is an interesting one, is that middle-aged or older demographics will still be looking for the genuine shopping experience. So they still want to be able to go out and physically touch the garments and try it on, perhaps before buying it. These are statistics that actually were just released by Statistics Canada last week. And it shows that, you know, the trend line, and you can definitely see that it's on a very big upswing overall in terms of e-commerce sales. And a year over year, there's been an increase of 60.6%. That being said, you can see how, you know, over time, while there was a bit of a spike in the June timeframe, there's been a bit of a less reliance on e-commerce, and that kind of coincides with you know, people doing their in-person shopping as public health measures were essentially being loosened, and you know, our economy was being opened somewhat. And so what's interesting here though is that, you know, in August, $2.8 billion were sold through e-commerce, and this accounted for 5% of the total retail trade. And so you can definitely see the trend line that, you know, from 2016 to where we are today, there has been a steady increase in e-commerce activities. So how do we help? How does TFO Canada think of us? And we very much like to, you know, not only be there to help support the SMEs from developing countries finding new markets, but we definitely see ourselves as playing a role and to be able to help buyers to be a sourcing partner. So obviously, I mentioned earlier about trade missions and trade events, and so we certainly have trade missions to North America, obviously in this day and age, more virtual missions that are sector focused and introduce the SME exporters to experience Canadian buyers and distributors. We also have from Canada trade missions that allow Canadian buyers to meet on site with the SMEs themselves in the client countries. And of course, we definitely continue to work in arranging meetings between buyers and exporters, and really a lot of our work is not only done in trade missions, but attending you know, major North American trade shows like the one here at the ATSV as well. We offer, so this is again for buyers. You know, these are free online services for importers, and so encourage anybody who's a buyer to check us out and to register on our website. Again, we provide information, so we do a monthly import info e-newsletter with links to new export offers that are relevant to your specific needs, as well as other useful trade news, events information. We do provide advice on finding working suppliers from developing countries. And of course, we do have a searchable supplier database for sourcing imports. We have over 1,300 registered exporters from 66 countries with you know, several thousand export offers. And of course, it's something that continues to replenish and to build over time. Other
Hey,
benefits of, yes.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
John.
Let me ask you this real quick, because it's a question from the audience, and I know the answer to it. It's what does TFOC stand for? Now, I know that it's Trade Facilitation Office of Canada, but maybe you could explain to the group, to the audience, like there are a lot of these offices. It's TFOC for Canada. Are you guys part of a bigger organization? That was a question that also came up. So can you explain a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thanks, John. Yes, so you're right. TFO Canada, Trade Facilitation Office Canada, we're a nonprofit international non-government organization based in Ottawa. And so we work with trade promotion organizations or trade support institutions in countries, developing countries around the world. And so they become an important partner of ours as we look to broaden our reach and to help support small, medium enterprise in developing countries find home or to be able to sell their goods, access foreign markets. And so that's kind of how we work. We work in partnership with these organizations in countries where they reside.
How, and if I ever interrupt you, just trust me. So how do you decide? I would think that there'd be a lot of countries that would be interested in having your support, their SMEs to come to Canada. So how do you guys go about on an annual or however often way to decide how you work, who you work with?
Yeah. So first of all, John, I always trust you. How do so basically our client countries, quote unquote, is any country that is eligible for development assistance. And so this is determined by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. They're located in Paris, France, and they every 3 years look at, you know, the socioeconomic conditions, the economic markets of different countries, and they kind of say, okay, these are the countries. There's about 140, I believe, at the moment that are eligible for development assistance. So from there, then we look at opportunities for funding. So we are, the way we receive our money is we get
this is important. This is important, and I want to be able to hear this part for the group. You're talking about the way you guys receive the money. Okay, let's try that.
So we receive funding from donors. One of our biggest contributor is the Canadian government, which is the Department of Global Affairs Canada. And with that, we work with our funders to determine good project opportunities to be working together to help, you know, them to achieve their development goals. And of course, for us, it's really important because we want to work with countries that want to expand their borders and really, I should expand their borders, really sell outside of their borders. And so we work with these partners in that way, in a very collaborative way.
Does it coincide often with free trade agreements for Canada? You know, because I feel like maybe it does, but maybe that's not a universal theme.
It's a good point, John. So yes, in many cases, we have worked with countries that have free trade agreements with Canada. In another cases, it's really about organizations and countries that have expressed a priority placed on one of their economic development priorities could be related to trade, and so it's a bit of a working with our funders, having an understanding of what's happening in different developing countries, and then crafting a project opportunity to be able to work together.
Okay.
So let me just move on to the next slide here. And so this is really, a look at our website, and this is a website again that is available for importers, for exporters, and the trade support institutions themselves. These are the three primary audiences. And so this is a view of really what an importer might look at when they've signed on and created an account and signed on. And so you'll see that there's a banner at the top, some trade information, and of course their dashboard in terms of some activities, what they've been doing as far as interactions on our website. And so, one of the areas that obviously is really important for the buyers and the importers themselves is the foreign supplier database that we maintain. And so we have, product offers to over 1,500 Canadian importers who are registered on our website. And we do have exporters from literally dozens of countries. And so, I did a recent query. So we have at the moment 102 clothing companies, basic fashion accessory companies, 21 footwear, home decor, etc. And so this really is an important part of the website for buyers that are looking to source products from developing countries. We always encourage importers to go here because they have a quick search and find potential suppliers for the future.
Steve, just letting you know, sorry to cut you off, a little choppy there for a minute.
Oh, sorry about that. Is it better now?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Go ahead, maybe the last 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just saying that this foreign supplier database is really an important tool for those that are, for the importers that are looking to diversify their supply, who are looking perhaps for a new supplier. We often encourage the importers to go here first because they can certainly find lots of products in different countries around the world. This importer newsletter, Imported Info, is something that we send out every month. And again, it provides updates on developing country suppliers and new supply offers, but it also includes really issues, relevant, important new issues, offers by sector. It talks about buyer incentive programs by country, trade events that are happening, etc. And so this is something that we send out on a monthly basis to our database. Also, sometimes when people are looking for supply, they often want to find out a little bit more about foreign representatives. So we have in our website information, contact details for the foreign representatives in Canada, and this is very searchable. And so you can find the diplomatic missions, embassies, and we do our best to keep this updated and current as possible. And again, this is just another way for buyers to be able to source and find information on a specific country. Client countries, so we have over 26 country profiles currently in our website. So this is an example of Peru. And think of this as a one-stop page information on the different countries that we serve as well. Just a little bit more details. So this is an example of Canada. And so, the country profile gives general information about it, political information, economic information. This screen grab's a little bit dated, but this is something that we keep current and keep updated on a regular basis as well. And so again, just lots of information available. Think of it as a one-stop access point for if you're interested in doing business or certainly sourcing products from a country. Market links. So again, the example here is Ghana. And so you can see that this is, again, a resource that can provide you with a lot of information on exports, on laws, logistics, and other things related to this country. And so you can see here we have links for Ghana on the Bank of Ghana, looking at the Environmental Protection Agency. So again, lots of information that are related that could be very important when you're looking at sourcing from a given country. Okay, so that was just a very quick overview of our website. So we're going to encourage everybody to check us out. It's www.tfacanada.ca, and certainly you can register online for free. It's a kind of a two-step process. You register, it takes a couple of days, and then we send you a username and password, and then you can start enjoying the different services that we have for offer. And given this important show, I thought that I would maybe close my presentation and talk a little bit about virtual trade shows and some of the observations that we have so far. So obviously, there's no doubt that there are some advantages to having virtual trade shows. They are definitely less expensive. And so the overall cost of attending a virtual trade show has been very much reduced as compared to a physical one. You're saving on staff, on venue, setup, takedown, hotels, et cetera, et cetera. They also can be very much a time saver. When you think about the time that you would spend traveling to an event, etc. That being said, we would highly suggest that that time savings should be reinvested in setting up and properly setting up. So making sure that you're very well familiar with the event website, registration, and of course preparing your marketing or promotional materials and setting up your virtual booth. Other advantage, obviously, the reach. I mean, on an online platform such as this, you can reach people from different walks of life, and it's a really great opportunity to perhaps grow your network and really promote your products by sharing the link to your website, really promoting it through social media challenges. And again, people from around the world can join with no travel issues. So these are, some great advantages that we see in terms of the virtual model right now. Making connections can be relatively simple. So virtual trade shows tend to be faster paced. Attendees, they can fit. They don't have to physically move from session to session, from booth to booth. It's it's really easy, and I'm sure those of you who have been attending this show know exactly what I mean. It can be easier to make connections with other attendees and speakers than at an in-person event. And you can actually request a meeting with somebody and do this all online. And again, because everything is online, recording information, names, titles, everything can be downloaded onto your tablet or your computer. Feedback. So attendees are constantly online at virtual events. And so this allows for opportunities for real-time polls and surveys on the spot. You can measure results. And so the data from these virtual trade shows can produce, they can vary depending on the platform. But it really tends to be easier to gather certain data, and it's really good for tracking information. I'm sure John and Jason can talk about how this platform, they're able to see, attendees logging in, from where, length of conversation, and a lot of these kind of metrics that we can track in an online world. That being said, there are a few obvious disadvantages, or certainly challenges, with virtual. And so face-to-face networking can be challenging, because obviously one of the great advantages of going to a conference is that, it's the people that you meet and the network that you're building. And so obvious times, spontaneity is a little bit more difficult in this kind of a circumstance, because oftentimes communications meetings need to be prearranged. Samples obviously can't touch or feel the products. That being said, a lot of the booths and the booths that I visited for this particular event have beautiful photos and really, really nice products that show very well. And so, but it is true that I can't physically touch that garment. There could be seen as a less excitement compared to the grandeur which is promised in a live event. So a virtual event can be viewed as just another browser that's open on a laptop. And I know that, as these things unfold, there's more and more of a perfection happening in this regard. And I think we all experience this working remotely, where there's potential distractions. So when you're attending a conference from the comforts of your own home, you can have distractions, whether it be the internet, email, children, pets, etc. And so capturing people's attention in a virtual model can be challenging at times. So in conclusion, and then I'll pass it back over to you, Jason. I guess we've all experienced some of the most challenging circumstances in recent human history, and that's, obviously that's quite an understatement. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused many of us to become creative in our approach to conducting business. The pandemic has really accelerated global trends in digital marketing and online interactions. In fact, in Canada, we've seen 4 consecutive months of growth in retail sales, but we've definitely seen a spike in year-over-year e-commerce increases, and now it accounts for 5% of the total retail trade. Cautionary note: while the world has shifted quickly to online tools, I really think that we should consider them as additions as opposed to replacements. And so, I would envision that, when the world is we're back to kind of the new normal, so to speak, that I would suggest that virtual trade shows will have their place, but I don't see them as being a total replacement for the in-person trade show events. And of course, last and certainly not least, we've definitely stayed with the times, and we've adapted a lot of our service delivery for importers, for exporters, for trade support institutions, and we're there to help in any way we can to help continue to foster trade in the best way we can. And so just a couple of links and contact details there. I thank you very much for your kind attention, and I apologies for the technical issues we may have had.
That's another one of those challenges you mentioned earlier when doing virtual. There's always there certainly is technical difficulties in live as well, but certainly more of a challenge when you're doing virtual stuff. But thank you so much, Steve. Everybody, I did post Steve's website, tfocanada.ca, on the chat function, as well as one thing I encourage all of our attendees to visit is we have a live hangout is what we're calling it. It's also on Zoom, and I included the link here on the chat function as well. That's just a place for attendees to connect directly with some of the partners we have, the speakers for our seminar series, and some of the administrative people we have here at ATS that can help you find what you're looking for in terms of sourcing and what other resources you might need. And to your point again, Steve, I think this, and we were speaking about this briefly before we began this session as a virtual. I think especially with the pandemic, and a lot of companies like ourselves have been forced, in other words, to adopt this model. But I think there will always be relevancy to the in-person events such as trade shows. So I think what we're going to see moving forward is a hybrid model. Anyway, so I did not have any other questions here from our Facebook feed. Again, that generally means that our presenters did an excellent job at giving us all the details. So I want to thank Steve Tipman again from TFO, and to all our panelists, and we will be reconvening here in a few hours for our next speaker. Thank you again, Steve.
Thank you very much.